Hey there, I'm Paul Phrampus. I'm a practicing emergency physician and simulation enthusiast from the University of Pittsburgh. I'm the director of the Weiser Institute. Today, we're going to be talking about 5 best practices for hybrid education design. So let's start a little bit by talking about what does hybrid mean. Hybrid means basically combining some online educational material with on-site activities into one curriculum to be able to deliver a bridge between the two to make the learning experience as good as it possibly can. Why would we want to do that? Well, there are things that we want that the student can obtain knowledge on from a perspective of knowing things. And then the simulation center side of the equation is best used for when we want to show people doing things, particularly doing things with an understanding of the knowledge that they had already learned from what we were previously talking about. So combining those things, hybrid learning curriculums are some of the most efficient and effective designs for simulation programs. So talking a little bit about the advantages of hybrid designs, it allows students to be fully prepared from a knowledge perspective before the simulation encounters. That way, it lets you conduct your simulation encounters at a much higher level. And if you do that, it probably reduces unnecessary time in the simulation center. And this is important because time in the simulation center is expensive. It's generally when you're paying the faculty members to be face-to-face with the students, so there's a lot of expense. That allows you to reduce that expensive time by looking at a hybrid curriculum model. Let's talk about some of the disadvantages. Curriculum planning may be harder. It's probably more complicated than just putting on a simulation or just putting on online education. You're actually doing both, combining the two. So there is a time investment that is now created by making the online materials that didn't exist before we decided to move into a hybrid curriculum. And then another disadvantage is students may not do the work online and prepare like they should before they come to your simulation center. We have to build things into the program that creates an incentive, makes them want to do the work. So let's get on with the tips. Tip number 5 is, how do we begin? Well, we begin by making a detailed list of exactly what we want them to know and exactly what they want them to do. So we make a detailed list of the learning that we want them to accomplish, and we create learning objectives, just like we're designing simulations. And then we decide what is knowledge, what is skills, and what is application of skills. What do we want to see them do? So we separate out and make sure the knowledge portions are contained in the online work. Sometimes skills review can be in the online work as well to get that repetitive memory of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then we're going to decide what do we want to see them apply, and that's going to be in the face-to-face education side of the equation. So tip number 5 is beginning with the end in mind of how do we create this monster that we're calling hybrid learning curriculum. The next tip is to create high-quality online materials. You want your students to be able to take it seriously, the online materials, and understand why it's so important that they study the materials and use the materials as you've designed. So you need to make sure they are of high quality, they are not distracting. Many people now do cell phone or mobile phone videos, and that's fine. What I want to caution you on is the audio. You have to make the audio or the sound as good as the picture looks. Otherwise, it is distracting, and your students may not take things seriously. The next thing is making sure that your online, or we'll call it the pre-work contains active learning. Just because it's online material and delivered asynchronously, meaning that people can consume it when they have the right time to do it, you want to still build in active learning. Create environments or create sessions where the student needs to interact with the curriculum. It might be as simple as making out a list, drawing a diagram that they see on the screen, or maybe connecting social media so that they are communicating and learning from their peers. But I think it's very important that it's just not some boring videos posted online that we call our pre-work or our online work. So high quality, active learning online materials. The next tip, and I talked a little bit about this during the introduction, is ensure the learner expectations and consequences are clear, meaning make sure they understand what the advantages of doing the online material are and what the consequences or what's going to happen to them if they don't. Some people have them take a written pre-test when they arrive at the simulation center and determine whether they have adequately prepared for the simulation or not. And other people just make it clear that they will be called on and expected to know the answers for the content contained in the pre-course material. But to be fair to the student, with hybrid education, we need to ensure that the learner expectations and consequences are very clear. The last tip is making sure that the simulation center, the time you're spending in the face-to-face learning, is linked directly to the pre-class learning materials. That's why at the beginning of these tips I said, make sure you have an organized strategy to create both sides of the hybrid learning equation, meaning the online materials and the on-site materials. It's best if you can incorporate exact diagrams, exact pictures, and themes from your online learning during your face-to-face instruction. It might be in the form of a mini lecture. It might be audio visuals that are incorporated during the debriefing process that they have seen before and can trigger in their mind the lessons that were learned from the online material and how it's being applied to the simulation session. So I hope that helps. Sometimes when we use the word online and hybrid, a lot of educators become nervous because of the amount of work that's involved and sort of not understanding how to make those linkages to the before hybrid and then after hybrid. So much has been changed since the pandemic. People are much more accepting of online materials, and I think that by incorporating good hybrid design with the tips that I have shared with you, you will find that you will be creating exceptional learning environments for your students. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button and also help us out by hitting the subscribe